Have you ever found yourself just fundamentally questioning the traditions you were raised with? Not necessarily out of anger, but from this deep, unshakable feeling that there just has to be something more. Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating astrological placement that literally challenges the very nature of certainty itself. We're looking at Ketu in the ninth house, what's often called the seeker's path. It's this incredible journey of spiritual independence, where all those inherited, ready-made answers get stripped away so you can discover something much more profound. Okay, so here's our roadmap for the seeker's journey to today. First, we'll look at the house and the node individually. Then, we'll explore the protest personality, followed by the trap of detachment, and finally, we'll wrap up with the conscious seeker. All right, let's jump right into part one, the house and the node. We gotta lay the foundation first. So let's start with the ninth house. You probably already know this is the domain of our inherited beliefs, traditional doctrines, and those unquestioned religious practices we grow up with. It governs philosophy, higher learning, ethics, the whole shebang. Ultimately, the ninth house represents how we try to understand life beyond just our immediate personal experience. It's kind of like the ultimate operating system that society installs in us from birth to help us make sense of the universe, right? Then we have Ketu, the south node of the moon. Now, Ketu acts as this massive dissolving force. It represents absolute detachment, renunciation, and this deep, innate inner wisdom. Its main job? To completely remove our fascination with things that once felt whole and complete. Wherever Ketu sits in your chart, that's where you get that been there, done that feeling. It literally dissolves worldly attachments just to push us toward true spiritual liberation. So what exactly happens when you take Ketu's absolute detachment and smash it into the ninth house of belief? Well, certainty becomes incredibly difficult to hold on to. You get someone who instinctively questions any teaching that demands obedience without direct experience. If you have this placement, you probably feel pretty disconnected from inherited doctrines. You might deeply respect wisdom, for sure, but blind acceptance? No way. It makes you super uncomfortable. Empty rituals just don't cut it. You need a truth that you can actively live, not just repeat. Which brings us to part two, the protest personality. This is where things really get catalyzed. You know, a lot of people with this placement have a pretty unusual relationship with religion or authority right from the get-go. Family traditions often feel emotionally distant. Religious practices, they just seem like mechanical routines, almost like mindlessly reciting lines in a school play rather than feeling any real spiritual connection. And when you ask the big, tough questions, your teachers or guides usually give answers that completely fail to satisfy that deeper curiosity. But here's the crucial part. Because these traditions feel so hollow, you end up developing an independent spirituality. You don't usually just default to atheism. You're not protesting against spirituality itself, but rather against belief without true understanding. This develops into what we can call a protest personality, but we have to make a huge distinction here. This isn't just intellectual rebellion. We're not talking about a difficult teenager dismissing traditions just to defy authority. This is genuine spiritual inquiry. You're asking why these traditions even exist, to see if they still hold any living truth. That skepticism, it isn't the final destination. It's literally just the starting point to figure out what actually remains true after every single belief has been interrogated. Ancient wisdom is absolutely fascinating to you, but only if it sparks personal understanding instead of just demanding blind conformity. Now let's move into part three, the trap of detachment. This is where the crisis happens. If this intense questioning energy is left unchecked, the seeker risks falling into a very specific, very dangerous trap. First, that constant, totally necessary detachment slowly sours into outright rejection. Second, every single organized belief or institution starts feeling incredibly restrictive. Every teacher seems limited. And third, and this is the ironic part, you actually form a rigid attachment to your own spiritual independence. You end up rejecting guidance not because it lacks value, but simply because relying on anyone or anything else feels deeply, deeply uncomfortable. So I want you to really pause and think about this profound psychological question sitting right at the core of this placement. Are you rejecting beliefs because they are actually false, or simply because commitment itself feels limiting? Think about it. When you're so used to tearing down illusions, the simple act of committing to a single path, a single philosophy, or a single teacher can trigger a massive defensive response. The crucial realization here is that spiritual detachment sometimes mistakes distance for wisdom. See, both the healthy seeker and the trap seeker question authority. Both refuse blind faith, and both challenge inherited ideas. But here's the difference. One path seeks the truth with a genuine sense of humility, while the other path just fiercely protects its own identity by staying in a state of perpetual, isolated independence. True spiritual inquiry, though, it always remains open to learning. Depending on the overall condition of your birth chart, this placement tends to express itself in one of two very different ways. A balanced Ketu brings out profound intuition, spiritual maturity, and deep philosophical insight. This is someone who naturally spots the difference between living wisdom and empty ritual, and they do it with incredible humility and zero dogmatism. On the flip side, an afflicted Ketu produces a lot of confusion and cynicism. It looks like aimless wandering, a deep distrust of teachers, and a total rejection of meaningful guidance. It's like the search goes on forever, but nothing ever feels quite complete. Because getting locked into fixed answers creates such intense discomfort, these individuals often become the ultimate lifelong students. You collect insights instead of identities. You travel widely, study all sorts of diverse mystical traditions, dive deep into psychology and comparative religion, but you rarely fully belong to any single one of them. For you, truth is always way larger than any one system. Your mind just keeps searching, because every single destination merely reveals another horizon waiting to be explored. Finally, we reach part 4, the conscious seeker, the ultimate resolution. The absolute deepest lesson of this placement is about redefining the very concept of faith itself. For the conscious seeker, faith is definitely not blind acceptance. But, and this is key, neither is it endless, cynical doubt. True faith grows through direct experience, honest, raw inquiry, and quiet realization. It's something built from the ground up, based entirely on what you have actually lived and verified in your own soul. The real purpose behind all this rigorous questioning was never to just destroy meaning. It was to strip away the illusions, the heavy dogma, and the mechanical rituals, until you find the genuine, beating heart of wisdom underneath. The goal is to uncover a meaning that actually survives the fire of your questioning. What's left standing after every illusion falls away? That is the absolute, unshakable truth. And this brings us to the ultimate balancing act for the conscious seeker. The absolute highest expression of this placement is becoming someone who can honor tradition without becoming imprisoned by it, and who can embrace total freedom without getting completely lost inside it. Real spirituality doesn't demand blind obedience, but it doesn't glorify endless, pointless rebellion either. It quietly invites you to experience life directly, reminding us that the deepest truths rarely fit neatly into any single doctrine or label. As we wrap up and you reflect on the incredible journey of the seeker we've explored today, remember this. The deepest truths require us to question sincerely and listen deeply. But most importantly, I want to leave you with one final thought. After all your seeking, all your intense questioning, and all your detachment, are you ultimately willing to remain humble before the great mysteries of life? The ones that no single label, philosophy, or religion could ever fully capture? Keep seeking, for sure, but remember to stay open to the answers.